citizen. I was born in the United States, but I've been to Manipur a few times. So I wanted to present some general ideas from my views of this conflict. Obviously, there's a lot of reasons we came here, but a lot of the solutions are more immediate. I want to talk through about like the long-term future for Manipur as a state. Now, the way I view this conflict is through a philosophy called dialectical materialism.
No, that's okay.
All right. So dialectical materialism is a philosophy around how we view history and modern conflicts, and it surrounds our socioeconomic relations, how society is built, and how that relates to modern events, historical events. And I view this conflict through this specific one. There's obviously an ethno-religious aspect of this conflict. There's been a lot of talk about Kukis versus the Meiteis, Christians versus Hindus, and I think that isn't useful. And I think looking through that term you can still look through that term, but I think ultimately, I think the main way we should view this conflict is through the lens of socioeconomics. The scheduled tribe status, there's a lot of arguments about whether or not this disadvantages Meiteis and the necessity for only Kukis to have it in Manipur. And there's a debate about that. So I wanted to look at that lens, through that lens. So one of my major things is I think the idea of the economic aspect of this, which is how land works. And I think one focus that a lot of other speakers have been talking about is how Meiteis should try to strive for scheduled tribe status to push for land reform to maintain the current demographics. Obviously, there's been arguments about Kukis having an increased population growth, whether it be through illegal immigration. I'm not going to be focusing on that. My main focus is going to be looking at other economies and how we can try to push for something similar in Manipur and India as a whole. For me, India is in many ways a squandered potential. There's a very high population in India as a whole, but we are still a very agricultural economy. Same could be said for Manipur as a general. And this isn't ideal for a state where the vast majority of the land is not ideal for farming. Only about 10% of Manipur is a valley section where we can farm, and so I think ideally, if we're going to move forward as an economy, I think the ideal is not towards agriculture. And subsistence agriculture in general, and I don't think Manipur is suited for commercial agriculture. So my argument has generally been towards industrialization and service economies. If we look at other nations, and one particular example where that's somewhat comparable is South Korea. I think South Korea's economic development, especially during the 1960s and 1970s, is something that we can follow through with Manipur and India in general, and I think that's something that we should strive for. One major thing is industry. In an area where the vast majority of our land is not suited for those agricultural activities, and we need to increase economic activities, I think the best way is through industrialization, particularly manufacturing. Obviously, this is going to be a difficult road, but it is something we should strive for in the future. India has a great potential for this, and I think Manipur as well. And if we can optimize how we build infrastructure in the around the hill areas and the northeast as well, I think we can push towards industrialization through a fairly rapid pace. I think it is possible for the next 20, 30 years, we can push towards a more industrial economy instead of focusing on agriculture. And I think this, fundamentally, it can solve some of our issues. Obviously, land is important for agriculture, but I think it is less important for industrialized economies. So if we can, a lot of this stems from economic frustrations within both communities. And I think if we are able to industrialize, if we are able to push towards a more dense population centers with more job opportunities, I think that is a path that we can move forward with. Obviously, I think scheduled tribe status is something we can still push for, but it is going to be more difficult because of the political situations, and we can still have ethno-religious conflicts like this. But what we can do with the land we have right now is push for laws that focus on trying to industrialize the Meitei economy right now. So that is my main way of looking at this, and I think that is something that we should push for right now.
Thank you. That's very.
Wow.
So this is one kind of, very interesting that our second generation has bright mind and this will help prosper and solve the many issues in Manipur and giving back from here. That we are proud of you. So, thank you. So next is Ajit. Please come and present your research. And we are looking forward to that.
CC out there. This will turn off this one or turn?